Hello. My name is Emery. Welcome to Coding Australia. This project is called Flexbox.
So this website should look familiar. It may actually look a little bit more advanced than what's in front of us at the moment because I'm developing this as I go along, but you would have come through here and you would have gone into this video and watched it. These other videos aren't there yet, but they will be quite soon. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because the next website lessons are going to be to do with responsive design, or adaptive design as it's called, and it uses a feature called Flex or Flexbox. And what does that mean? Well, this website, if you resize it, as you can see, it goes back, resizes itself down to iPhone size pretty much without losing any size or anything like that. And this is what we're going to be working on now. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to read a little bit at this w3schools.com website. So that's the place you're going, and this is what I'd like you to have a look at. CSS3 Flexbox. You can look up this if you wish. Tells you what it's about, gives you some examples, and you can try these examples yourself. So when you flick over, try it yourself, you'll see stuff over here, and you can change the code and basically have a look at the examples. So this one, there's the code, they give it to you here too. You can play with the code. So for example, you might make that say green if you want, and then hit that, and all of a sudden they become green. So you can play with those as well and just watch what happens, play with the dimensions, etc, etc. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff to look at. You're probably not expected to remember every single thing that happens. It's whatever sort of you need and what you do. That's what I did. I started here and I worked my way through, got what I needed. Go back once in a while, have a look. It makes life a lot easier. So that's the first thing. Now, to get things started, what I'd like you to do, once again, thank you to Web3 Schools, is to take this code over here and put it into your editor and save it. And when you do, you'll get something that looks like that when you open it in the browser, but not quite. It may be if it's narrow, but if it's a bit wider, it will look like that. So that's what you want. As you can see, it resizes itself depending on the size of the window. Very handy these days with tablets and iPads and iPhones and big screens and all that sort of stuff. Nothing's degraded, it just repositions itself. So that's very handy. Now the code that's running that, which I've called Flex1, and I've saved in a new folder which I've called Flexbox. So the code is, I can just find out, there we go, if I can just get it back, the code is pretty much, I've copied and pasted it. I made one small change, I put middle in here instead. So that's one small change I made there. There's a reason for that which will come up later. Okay, so that's the code. Now, you've been here before. If I show you the next one, which does exactly the same thing, you'll notice that all that's left is that, but we have this. And so what you need to do is with Flex1 is to get all of that CS3 stuff there and take it out and save it in a separate CSS file like that. I've called it Flex2 because it's associated with Flex2 HTML, and then a bit later we're going to be looking at 3, etc, etc. So the CSS file does exactly the same thing. When you run Flex2, it looks exactly the same as Flex1. Alright, so if I go over here and change that to a 2 and run it, It's the same thing. It's just that we now have CS3 separate, which is what we want. So this is where we finished off last time. This is Flex 2 CSS, and this is the Flex 2 HTML file that goes with it. And now we're going to make a few changes, and we're going to bring in a few things from the Hello World as well, just to keep things moving in that general direction. So our Flex 2, which looks like this, and I should also mention, and down here is where a lot of the resizing action takes place. So, and it's pretty standard stuff. This tells you to put stuff in a different spot depending on the size of your screen. So when the screen gets moving, things move around into different spots, and that's what this part here does. Alright, so the good thing about this is you don't need very much in there to actually get things happening, which is great. Sometimes this can be absolutely chock-a-block with stuff, but we're trying to, you know, the one good thing about Flex is it overcomes a heck of a lot of stuff that you used to have to do to actually get resizing to happen. So yeah, it's pretty good in that respect. Alright, so that's what Flex 2 looks like, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a few things. So this is Flex 3. The top part looks pretty much the same, except we've added a little bit in there. So I just grabbed a font and gave it a colour. The other part that's different is the middle. The middle was just cornflower blue. It is now an RGBA. So I've changed all the RGBAs. So instead of just having things like cornflower blue and whatever, the moccasin and all those different ones, I've gone with the actual RGBA, which to me is a lot more powerful, and it gives you a lot more flexibility, obviously. So the middle looks like that. The side, same thing. If you go back to here, all the side had was a background moccasin here, and the headers are a bit different. We're coming to that. Now the background is that with a little bit of padding, and the header and the footer are actually the copied and pasted from the CSS from Hello World that did the menu thing. So if you go back and have a look, you'll realise that the menu gradients that we used are now being used in the header and the footer. So even though you think there's a lot of code here, all that, it's just be copied and pasted from the other CSS file and put it in there, call one header, call one footer instead of the menu, and hover. We'll come along and do something with that later, and the rest stays exactly the same. So that's the new Flex 3 CSS, and this is the previous Flex 2 HTML, and this is the new HTML. Now, there's a couple of bits that have been put up the top here, which are standard stuff, and as it says, these three meta tags must come first in the head. Any other head must come after these tags. So put them in. They just sit there. They give you a little bit, you know, they control the devices that you're using a lot better. You get into a lot less trouble when you've got that stuff up the top, trust me. These you can please yourself. This favicon is the little thing that appears there on your tag. So I'm not sure if I've got one at the moment, but I'll have one in a moment. It'll turn up and then it'll appear. So when you open these up, the little icon will appear there. Okay, it's about a 40 by 40, and it's got the ICO tag. It's not a PNG or a JPEG, it's .ICO, and that's what makes that appear. There's the style sheet link. This time it's Flex 3, which is what we were there over here, and down here the top and the bottom look the same, and we've brought over our pet pictures and put them on the sides and left the others the way it is. Alright, and if you save that as Flex 3 and open it in the browser, you will get that is what you'll get. It'll look just like that, and then we'll start working on, and of course when we resize things, same story happens again, like that and like that. So everything stays pretty much good. It's the same size, it just puts itself in a different spot. So it's always easy to read. You don't wind up with text you can hardly read and pictures you can hardly see. It's pretty good like that. Alright, so get all that set up. So this is where we got to. The website, if you've got everything right, will look something like that. And this is the codes to go with it. So you've got your CSS file here, your header and your footer. Now somehow or other in some copying and pasting, I think that part there disappeared for Safari, so put it back. You probably wouldn't have noticed it unless you're running Safari. I would never have noticed it unless I looked again and realised, because I use Firefox all the time these days. So anyway, put that in, get that right now before we start making some adjustments. Alright, so this is what we've got so far, and this is what it looks like. So we're going to make some changes. We're going to work on the putting some menu items up here and some of those footers that you had in the previous Hello World where we had the links to Twitter and Facebook. So that's what's going to happen next, and this is how we're going to do it. First things first, we'll go, that's what Flex 3 looks like now, and we're going to add a bit. So most of it's just copying and pasting. So the top, I had black there before, I've changed it to that now. The middle should be the same, the sides we haven't worked on yet, we'll do that later. We've added this for our menus, which I got from the old CSS file from Hello World, so that part needs to go in. Header, footer and a menu. Now the menu is a direct copy of header and footer if you have a look. Okay, so it looks exactly the same, except I've added a float into there, and I've put a float in here as well for our footer. If you haven't got those, put them in. Alright, and you'll see what happens when we do that. At the moment you think, oh well, I don't need that, everything's in the middle already. Well, yes it is, but once you start adding extra styles inside, things start to change. So just to make sure we get everything pretty much right, so copy those two down in here. They're exactly the same. As a matter of fact, my copying was so bad that I've actually done this again and I just noticed it. So here we go again. Down here it's the it's actually the second one, for some reason didn't paste. Alright, now I think we're right. Yeah, that looks pretty right. And now everything's there. Doesn't hurt to keep an eye on this stuff. I mean, everything's pretty, it's all exactly the same, except what brings it up, the different browsers just don't recognize gradient. They're all different. Gosh, one day they're all going to be the same surely. Standard syntax, yeah, that'd be a great idea. So they just need to sort that out. Alright, so there you got Flex 4. Now the HTML file looks like this. So if we go back to this one and just have a quick squiz at what's happening. At the moment we've got header and we've got footer. Everything else is in there. This is called Flex 3. It's now called Flex 4, and we've put this in. So that's what the header now looks like. It looks like that. So you can probably almost copy and paste that out of the last Hello World script as well, I would think. It must be pretty close. And the footer, pretty much the same again. Looks like this. So even though there's a lot of extra code, or a bit of extra code being put in, if you've got your other older Hello Worlds, like I think I've got it from back here, so I went and grabbed this stuff straight out of the old About from the previous, and some of the style I went and got as well, as you can see. So I'm not retyping anything very much, I'm just getting stuff from other places and putting it in there. Okay, so that's what you've got. You've got that, which I better save because I've added that extra bit with Safari, and you've got that, and then over here this is what happens. So there's your 4 links in the bottom, and here are your menus doing their thing. Alright, now we'll start working on, oh, and by the way, it's called Flex 4, so when I hit home I get an error, so which makes sense. So what I think I'll do that right now. I'm going to save this as, so that we're underway for the next lesson. I'm going to save this as, I don't think I've got it already, no I don't, so I'm going to save this as home, and that will get us ready for the next lesson, and hopefully we'll see what happens. Yep, it works, but we'll still get mistakes here and the other ones as well. We went there down that track once before. Okay, so home's working. Oh, sorry, one extra little bit. I just put that in so we could distinguish. So let's go back and have another quick look, and I put H2 homepage in there for home. So I've saved Flex 4 as home, which is this, and it looks pretty much the same. I didn't mention that I'd actually added an extra menu item either, which is news. You probably spotted that, and I've also changed it to style. So we're going back to the original stuff at Hello World where we called it the CSS was a style, and so I've done the same thing with Flex 4. However, and this is what we're going to have a little bit of a look at the moment. Let's just go back and have a look at Flex 4 CSS. Yes, everything the same. We're going to just play a little bit with what's going on down here. Now, if you resize what you've got under Flex 4, it all just resizes it and repositions itself, because it's got all these little bits and pieces in here which you can play with the order and watch what goes down if you want. But what we're going to look at is this. It uses sometimes as min width and sometimes as max width. This one uses min width. So what that you got to kind of think in reverse. What you're saying is this: you want things to change as you get smaller, so it kind of works, it covers all bases, and then it covers sort of part of the bases, if you get my drift. So the way it works is you've got to sort of think in reverse. So let's say, for example, we wanted the header to get a little bit smaller when we moved into a smaller size. So if we're down to say the size of a phone, we may want that there to get smaller. You're probably just going to jump in here and go, well, that's alright, I'll just put in a header statement in here, which you can do, and I'll resize it. But if you do that, what will happen is, well, I won't show you what will happen. What I'll do is, maybe we get it right if I do it. No, I won't bother about it. We'll just get straight into it, alright? So this is what happens. The home file hasn't changed, except it says style, so everything's the same. What has changed is the style library's changed, and the first thing that's changed is this: the font size for the header is actually, you make it smaller, alright, because what it's saying is that if you get under 600, that's what you want the header to look like. You want the size to be that big with no padding. Okay, so and I've made a couple of other small changes in here that you need to, well, you don't have to, but you might want to play with as well. So just check your padding for your menu, which I haven't played with at all. I could, but I'm not. So I'll just show you what's changed down the bottom here. Okay, so in these media statements, when it says min width to 600px, the font actually gets a little bit bigger and the padding gets a little bit bigger. And when it gets to minimum width of 800, the font gets bigger and the padding gets bigger. Now, why is that? Well, if the reason for that is that you don't have to then try and figure out what is going to be the biggest screen I'll ever use. So you don't have to think about the maximum width of your biggest monitor. All you've got to worry about is the minimum width and let it change. So when it's under the 600, it'll default to all this stuff up here, but when things get bigger, it'll change. Okay, so if you want to, you can spend a heck of a lot of time playing with all this kind of stuff here, and we'll look at a little bit of it down the track, but at the moment that's what I've added. I've just put that little bit in there so that we don't get too carried away here. I've just played with the header. Now I've changed the style, it's called home. About and that we're not looking at yet, it's going to be slightly different. And when we do this, when we're running home out here, I shouldn't have to refresh it, but I will. So there you go, a big window. Now as I move in a little bit, I get to 800, bingo, it gets smaller. Okay, now you may not want this to happen, but I'm just showing you what the effect is. The effect is that when I get right down to the phone size, I could make it even smaller, and I could play with this padding a little bit too, so that everything is up on that same line there. So there's a little bit of playing going on down here for anything where the min width is 600. So once it gets past 600, it comes back to 800. When it gets past 800 and wherever you go, that's what it looks like. So that's how it works, just like that. And we will do some more style changes down here, especially when it comes to things like the order of things on the screen. In other words, rather than about looking like that in the middle and pictures on the side, we might want it slightly different. We may not want any of this in the middle for gallery. We might want all gallery, pictures everywhere, and we want the order to kind of stay pretty much the same as it gets smaller. So as it comes in, we've got to decide what we want to happen. Do we want the middle bit to come up to the top, or do we want it just to resize itself like that, so you finish up with a gallery that's in order and nothing written at the top? So we're going to have a look at that. Alright, so here's the home page as we left it, and there's the script that goes with it and the style library that goes with it. Now we're going to play a little bit with the style library to get our gallery, which I won't show you yet, but I'll get to it. Alright, but first things first is about will pretty much look like home. So the home one, which will turn into about, which I've done already, so just have a look. There's not much going on, it's just a little bit of a change here, just so that you know when you click one or the other they actually change. So I'll show you what about looks like. Exactly the same, pretty much same style library. I think I just changed the order of the pictures, so that means when you do this you get that. They look exactly the same, pretty much. Tells you about. Go back over here and have a look at about website, and the pictures are rearranged. Alright, now when things get a little bit interesting, when you want to start playing with a different type of flex layout, and so to get, as I said earlier with gallery, what we want to do is we want gallery, we're going to make gallery so it's all pictures and none of this is in the middle. Okay, by that I mean it's going to look like this. Alright, I'll just go out a little bit further. So there you go. So, and I mean you can play with pictures and stuff, but that's pretty much what we're looking at. And when it resizes, the pictures just do that. So they stay the same size. You can notice the menu gets a bit smaller because that's from previous, but as it is, it just stays like that. So the gallery pictures just fit themselves best as they can, given on 3 different setups that we've got. If you want to play with them in with the stuff and add more, you can, but we're not going to worry about that at this stage. Alright, so that's that. Now, what happened? Well, here's gallery first. Let's just walk ourselves quickly through, a little slowly, quickly through this. In the home, we had header, article, aside 1, aside 2, footer. What we now have in the gallery is header, aside 1, aside 2, aside 3, and aside 4, footer. So article's gone, there's no middle, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've just picked out pictures at random here and put them up there. So that's why it looks like that. Okay, and moves when you resize it. You can actually do a bit more to push those 2 straight down there, but we're not getting to that part yet. That may happen later. So at the moment, when you resize, pictures stay the same and they just wander down one under the other. Now, what actually makes them do that is over here, and what I've done is I've taken the style library and I've renamed it gallery so that I don't lose the original one. Now there's other ways we can do this, but at the moment it's just another style library that looks pretty much, or a lot of it's the same, but some of it's different. This is where it's different here. If you go back to style and have a look, that's what it looks like at the moment. This is gone. We took that out because we don't need it. We've still got this. We still have to have this. What that's telling us is when we want everything to fill the entire screen when we've got a small size, and it would do that except that these things change. Alright, that's what changes it and makes the layout change down there. Okay, so we've got all that. That doesn't change, that doesn't change, that doesn't change, that doesn't change, but this does. Alright, when we get to the min 600x, in that bit we haven't done anything yet. You can if you want, and if you're going to do that, then you're going to split it up. In this one, if you go back and have a look at the style down the bottom, this min width, which is like from 800 and bigger, so the maximum stuff, it used to look like this. It used to look like that. It now looks like that. Okay, it now looks like that. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, the order that we want, This one will sit at the top regardless. Okay, and you could, if you wanted to though, just play a little bit with that, but we've left that the way it is for now, and everything else is exactly the same. And when you do that, you wind up with the gallery HTML looking the way it does. So that's it. Now we'll just stick with that for the moment. So 2 CSS files, one for gallery and the other for home and about. Same style library for those two. Okay, so you get the same look about it. We could actually create 2 CSS files, a media CSS that we pull up depending on which one it is, but we'll just leave everything as it is and have a fair bit of repetition going on at the moment. So that's what we've got, and that's why we wind up with this. And as we bring it in, they go like that. Now you might want to get a whole bunch of pictures that are in a certain order for a certain reason, and watch what happens when they, what order they go and where they finish up. Each one of these is an aside 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they replace themselves in different spots. We may, if we have time, look at putting those two straight underneath when we move to the middle one, so that when we get to there they both drop down. It's being a bit pedantic, I suppose, but anyway, so you get it there and then you get it there, so still pretty good. There we go. Alright, this will be the last in this set of videos to do with Flex, but Flex isn't going away, it's just this will do for now, and then there'll be changes as we move further on. So once we go next, I think I'll be doing PHP would be the next one, so we'll see some more Flex stuff happening there. Now what we're going to do to finish things off is we have a news site, and this is about gallery we looked at before, and this is what news is going to look like. Now they look essentially about, looks pretty much the same except for one little difference there, and that little difference is it's going to link to somewhere else. At the moment they don't link anywhere. You can decide where you want them to go later. So this should look familiar from previous work we did, and we'll just go over it and make sure it looks right. You can put whatever you like in there, some newspapers that you are online, we can put the photos in there and then link away to the other sites and things like that. To do this, to set it up, we don't have to do anything to the style library. The style library saves pretty much as it is, in fact exactly as it is. And the news, oh wait a minute, what am I saying? We need to obviously add, dear oh dear, we need to add this, which I got from over here somewhere. I had some style stuff, so we need the style, and for some reason I changed the name slightly, so you've got this somewhere, I'm sure you do. If not, that's what you need. So you need to get the shadow thing happening like that, put that in to the style library, go to about, have a look at that, and you're going to save news from the about, so change about and then save as news. What's the difference? Not much. News links, a link reference going nowhere, and a class statement in there. So that's what you had. This is what you've now got. Drop shadow, drop shadow, drop shadow, drop shadow with a link. If you get real with the links and actually put something legitimate in there, don't forget to put target equals new, or if you don't, it's just going to, this tab will just be replaced by wherever you go, or it'll open in a separate tab if you put target equals new, which we looked at somewhere else as well. So that's it, pretty short and sweet. That pretty, for the moment, that'll be enough to work on with Flex. So news, gallery, about, and home. If we do a bit of resizing back to that size, and then click on news, same thing, gallery, that's what happens. We go right in, news, links, whatever you decide to put in there, about, etc, etc. So that's what you can do. There's lots of other stuff you can do as well, and on the website there'll be a couple of links there for sure that you can look at, take you away and learn other stuff.
Thank you, too.